Hello, and welcome to this edition of Finance and Technology Insights with Eric and Brian. I'm Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting.
I'm Eric Biendorf, CEO of Evernet Consulting. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's good to be back after we took a week off before the Labor Day, and now we're back here on a Wednesday, a couple days after Labor Day. So probably got a lot to talk about, lots going on. The summer was, I think, busy for both of us, but September through the end of the year is a different kind of busy. So looking forward to get going with all that. How are the kids doing back at school? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so we're recording Wednesday, September 6th. We normally record on Tuesday mornings. The kids went back to school last Wednesday, had a half day, had a half week, had a 3-day weekend, and then they actually have a half day on Wednesdays. So the first 2 weeks, it must be a New England thing because my buddy out in California, they've been in school for 4 weeks. My sister in Florida has been in school for 4 weeks already. They're already in the groove. So yeah, I mean, it's a little, I don't want to say chaotic, but it's just like, can we get back to it?
I know. And so here, our first couple weeks were, well, I'll start by saying in New York, they don't actually start till after Labor Day, which I think makes a ton of sense. It's ridiculous to go and stop and start for a couple days. But so Lauren, my wife, teaches in a adjacent town, but it happens to be a different county, and they do kind of county-wide school schedules here in Connecticut. So for Labor Day, she actually had Friday off, Saturday and Sunday, of course, and Monday. And my son did not have Friday off. So he went to kindergarten. He started Thursday, Friday, and then had 3 days off. And then he went full day yesterday, which was Tuesday. And now today he's got a half day because of the heat, and the elementary school's not air conditioned. And what's odd is looking at the weather today is a carbon copy of tomorrow. It looks like they're both going to be high of around 92, 93. So they alerted us to a half day. They alerted us last night. And I'm thinking, well, you can look at, let's just say half day the next 2 days, and get it over with. But so now we got a half day today, 2 hours early dismissal, and likely a half day tomorrow. But yeah, I'm in that same kind of mode of like, can we get a 5-day week where everything is like where they go to school all day and just kind of get back in the rhythm? So, but it's all been good. I mean, it's been amazing. So my son started kindergarten, so we go through that, doing the orient. So first day we did pick up and drop off. And then on the Friday, which was the second day, we did bus to and from. So figuring out the bus schedules and all that kind of stuff. But no, it's definitely been fun. It's been a big adjustment for me time-wise because, as I've said before on here, I've been wonderfully lucky, and I knew it at the time, and I knew that it would end at some point. But my wife and son have always left for school at 6:30 in the morning because my wife gets up early and she likes to go in early. So she's always dropped him off at daycare, and 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning, a lot of times are my most productive 2 hours of the day. And those are for now gone because he doesn't get on the bus till 8:30. So again, I'm not
until 8:30. He doesn't get on the bus until 8:30.
Yeah, so he's scheduled for an 8:14 pickup. That's what we were alerted to. But the earliest it's been so far has been 8:32. So we'll see if that starts to creep back as efficiency and whatever. But even if gets on at the scheduled 8:14, I'm still we walk down to the end of the road and come back. So I'm still not getting back till almost 8:30. So those, for me, it's a big adjustment. Those 2 hours are now have to be smushed somewhere else or greater efficiency or something. And again, I'm not complaining. Those 2 hours so far have been because he still gets up. So we're all having breakfast, and my wife leaves at 6:30, and I'm looking at him like, all right, we got 2 hours, man. What are we doing? So it's been trying to kind of figure out the rhythm. We're making his lunch in the morning. We leave to walk down to the bus stop, but we leave at 8:00 because it's a nice round number. It's probably a little bit earlier than we need to, but so we've been walking down there at 8:00. We're trying to figure out what's the balance between like doing some chores and doing, having a little bit of fun in the morning. And so I think next week we're going to do like a sticker chart. He's going to kind of have a morning checklist. And then if he can do all of those things Monday through Thursday, maybe he'll earn like Friday morning, we'll go out to breakfast and I'll do a drop off, or he can earn a Friday pickup. So I think that's probably the way we're going to go. But yeah, it's been an adjustment, but it's 100% fun. No complaints. So
That's great. I mean, that's
random
all part of
cool.
that's all part of that, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
these
Yeah. I
new
love being a
times, new
bus dad.
milestones.
I love being out at the bus stop, and he gets dropped off around 3:40, which is, it's obviously still part of my work day. Market's not even closed yet, but so far and my wife, luckily she's home by then and she can take him. And but so far I'm like, no, I'm walking down there with you. So we got like both parents at the bus stop eventually that'll probably
Yeah.
end, but it's been fun so far, and the weather's been good. So once it gets to below freezing, then I'll just send my wife down and pick them up. I'm not doing that, but
Yeah. So
but
we're too close to be bussed. So we do the walking and the driving and the dropping, and they get out at 3:20, and even if 3:40, to have him get off the bus at 3:40, although I guess you still probably have to walk down there maybe 20 minutes early to not. Well, I mean, I don't know what your window is, but it would really be nice if the kids came home in the door at like 3:45. If we could just get close to that 4 o'clock hour,
yeah,
it would really be a nice kicker. The Wednesday at 2 routine is brutal. I mean, I enjoyed it when I took a lot of time off from work to be with the kids when they were
hmm
babies and young. But now it's like let's get on with it.
hmm
Um, so yeah, I mean that's just those are the
part of the
days,
deal. Yeah,
part of the
yeah,
deal. Yeah.
part of the fun. Yep. Um, so I'll kick us off. I think so. One of the reasons we moved from doing our normal Tuesday to Wednesday, and I'll just share this Barron's article quick. And
Is this just this week and do you want to do that in perpetuity?
no, this was just this week, and I'll let me share what we're talking about here. So I'm sharing an article. This is from Barron. So the lead the lead statement here for those listening is this is from Barron's. To say Charles Schwab had a busy Labor Day weekend would be an understatement. Between Friday and Tuesday morning, the company moved more than 7,000 advisors, nearly 4 million accounts held by clients, and 1.3 trillion in assets from TD Ameritrade
Oh
to
my
Schwab's platform. This was a really big weekend, end quote, says Bernie Clark, head of advisor services at Schwab. So little insight as to how folks like me work. So when you're an advisor, you work with a custodian. So you don't pay them, they don't pay you, you're not an employee of them. It's just a vendor relationship. Yes, you have to do certain things to be on their platform. They need to make sure that you're not some kind of crook and all that kind of stuff. But so you'll typically have a custodian. That's what it's called. And that is a partner of yours from a technology, data, all that kind of stuff. The software that you implement will talk to these different custodians. So when I started out, I already had with my previous firm, they did a lot of work with Charles Schwab. That was their main custodian. So I had started with TD just to do a little bit something different. And then eventually I added Schwab because they were a little bit bigger, and it was my understanding at the time they didn't take newer advisors. So I had established that relationship with TD when I got up and running. And then somebody from Schwab reached out and they're like, "Hey man, why aren't you using us?" Somebody that I had no, I'm like, "Well, I didn't think you guys worked with kind of newer advisors." They're like, no, you're fine because, since they don't want a bunch of brand new advisors on their platform because it's going to take a lot of labor, and there's no money that changes hands there. So you're not paying Schwab to be on their platform. They're not paying the advisors or whatever. So anyway, so long story short, I was running these couple different platforms for a while. And then, so Schwab announced they were buying TD in November of 2019,
Yeah.
and it closed in 2020. So the fact that it's taken until, Labor Day weekend of 2023 was quite a process. But so
Yeah.
basically,
Well, we
what
know
you
earlier
do,
in the year that TD moved the accounts to the Schwab platform. So at least the consumer accounts were moved, a couple months ago, right?
Yeah. Yep. So this is the advisor stuff. So folks that logged into TD yesterday on the app, they're like, "Hey, you now have a Schwab account. Download the Schwab app and whatever." And all this stuff. I mean, from working with clients, they're never gonna most of them won't take a proactive anything until they have to type of thing.
Right,
So
right.
there
It's
were a
always the
few of
cliff.
those calls that, "Hey, I logged in today. Where'd my account go? What happened?" It's like, well, we
Right,
sent you a lot of emails, a lot of mail,
right. It was
whatever.
all over the news. It was all over your
Yeah.
emails, all over your apps. It was
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
And so just I think it's important to kind of just give you a little insight into the world of why it's important, these custodial relationships. So when a client comes to me and says, I got X amount of money to invest or whatever, what do I do? Or I'm starting an IRA. What they're going to do is they're going to open the Schwab account. It's going to be attached to my, master account number. And then they're going to, so any statement they get will be a statement from Schwab, and it'll say your advisor is, Brian Williams, Northshire Consulting or whatever. And then there's authority that I have to make trades, to disperse money in certain situations, build the account. And then there's other things that require a little bit more permissions. And those are, they're annoyances to advisors a little bit, but those are checks and balances that are important. I couldn't just change a client's, disbursement instructions to my own personal bank account, or I couldn't change the client's address to my home address so they weren't receiving statements or all that kind of stuff. So if you think about, so they'll always get their statements from Schwab, and then they'll always get, supplemental statements, or certain reports will come from me in my reporting system. So the statement from Schwab will basically say, you have this, and here's your transactions over the last specific period. But if you're looking for performance data or some sort of projections or some sort of in-depth analysis, those are usually going to be outside reports. So that's important because a client can, if they're questioning their advisor or something like that, they can always call Schwab and say, "Hey, listen, do I really have these assets? Do I, so they're logging into Schwab, they're doing all that kind of stuff." So I say all that because in like a Bernie Madoff situation where he was different, is he didn't partner with a custodian. He was his own custodian. So what was happening was, from one floor in his building, he was sending out this custodial statements, which he had complete control over. On another floor in his building, he was sending out, supplemental reports and whatever. So he was running the advisory business and the custodial business. So that's why he was able to falsify this information, falsify these returns, and tell people essentially that they had more money than they really had. Whereas, in a normal advisor relationship, if they get a statement from me that says they've got $2 million, and then they get a statement from Schwab that says they only have $1 million, they're going to say, what's the deal here? But they didn't have that opportunity in a Bernie Madoff situation. So that's
Wow,
kind of the
was
story I tell.
his
Because some
transgression
clients
was that
will,
egregious?
yeah. So which to you and me, when you explain it that way, that when I, because clients will sometimes ask that, when that was a hot thing, the Bernie Madoff, there, how do I know you're not the next Madoff and whatever? And you can, tell them that story and tell them the function, and usually their next reaction is, well, how are his clients so stupid? Why would they allow something like that to happen? Why didn't they question? Why is he allowed to, be the custodian and the advisor and all that kind of stuff? It's like, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, somebody
Is
who's,
it fraudulent
putting
to
away.
be a custodian and the advisor?
No, no, it's totally okay. So he wasn't
He
from,
probably was running them as
structure.
two separate LLCs, anyways, right?
Yeah, right. So he was, structurally he wasn't doing anything wrong, and the regulators knew he was doing both sides of that, but just from a client standpoint, like, man, that's kind of stupid. And all his clients were obviously really, wealthy individuals, and for the most part, people who kind of should have known better. But again, but I think that's a story that used to, sometimes clients would ask, they'd say, how do I know you're not the next Bernie Madoff or something like that. You don't get that as much, but sometimes they'll be blunt about it, or sometimes they'll kind of beat around and say, well, how does this, structure work? So I think that's important that people understand how you work with an advisor, and, certain checks and balances that exist. And when we're running any kind of internal reports or anything, we always also like if I go to a client's house and I'm running some kind of report, I'll also print out their Schwab statement and be like, listen, here's what Schwab has down to the penny. Here's what we have in our system, because they're reconciled, and provide them with both, even though they kind of get that in the mail. So that's what happened over the weekend. And then yesterday I was just doing some spot checking. I mean, if you're doing a reconciliation, you could go nuts with that, and you go crazy with it, but just kind of spot checking values and making sure people's information ported over, and just talking to other advisors. There was some
any anomalies or
no, not really. I mean, there was one time. So with bonds, it's kind of weird. They'll show them as pricing. Let's say a bond will price at like $98 out of 100 or something. There was one time when Schwab, they had a decimal issue over the weekend. I forget whether they gave where it showed too much money or not enough, but basically people's accounts were affected by a factor of 100, which bond position. So that was kind of funny. So that was one of the first things I looked at, like, all right, do these balances check? Like, did somebody go to sleep with $25,000 and wake up with 2.5 million, that type of thing. So that was kind of the first thing. And then you're just making sure everything is there as far as the number of accounts and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I wanted to do first, like Tuesday morning. And that's why we are, they were transparent. They did a good job of announcing. They said, hey, both Schwab and TD, the advisor websites are going to be shut off at, I think it was 8:00 Friday night. And then both of the websites will be back up again Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. So they were pretty clear about that. So that's that. Thought that was a good story to kick us off with.
That's a lot to chew on. What about feature parity for you from Schwab to TD? Are you losing anything or gaining anything?
Not really. There's a couple features. So one big program that TD had on the advisor side was called iRebal, which allows you to kind of semi-automatically rebalance clients' portfolios. So let's say, for example, somebody has 50% stocks, 50% bonds. If stocks do really well, suddenly they're 55% stocks and 45% bonds. And now they're taking more risk than they had originally signed up for. So ideally, you want to pull that 5% off the stock side and buy bonds with it. So these rebalancing programs allow you to kind of go in, and it will trigger certain clients that are out of balance, or you can kind of set the parameters in terms of the allowance of which you'll allow them to be out of balance. You're not going to rebalance them if they're 50.1 versus and 49.9. So you set that variance, and that's a feature that a lot of folks liked at TD. And they said, I think originally they said that was going to be ported over later on, but now they're saying that that's going to be available at Schwab by the end of September this month. So that's a really good thing. On the Schwab side, there are a couple things I like better. And it might just be because I've been using them a little bit longer, but as far as like some of their data exports and stuff that they have, because me, I'm like kind of a data nerd. I like to look at things in different ways, get like the rawest data I can, and then pull it together the way I want to view it. So I do like that on the Schwab side. The feedback I've got from clients is they like the Schwab app a little bit better. So I didn't really use the TD client app that much, although I'm familiar with it. But so I'm glad to hear people like the Schwab app better, because you know how it is. Most people always like, well, how do I do this? I could do that in the old one. People are sometimes reluctant to change. So haven't got a ton of feedback on that.
I mean, I'm right in the middle of this transition. So I was a TD customer. I have some accounts with and some investments in a TD account, and so I am now in the Schwab account. In fact, I just executed a trade last night, and I mean, for me, I'm a technologist, so like it's the same language, just in different colors and fonts. You know what I mean?
Right. And if you kind of have that like a little bit of like the programming mindset, you kind of see where they're trying to go. Like you said, you kind of see the way things are built, and I think over time, they started to kind of make the TD a little bit more Schwab-like, the experience. So for individual client, for buying bonds, that system is much better on the Schwab side. The TD one was a little bit clunky. You had to like paste an account number somewhere, and then it like transformed the account number into like different. It was really clunky, but it was a situation where you could accidentally buy the wrong amount of bonds if you weren't really paying attention.
Right.
So, which is, and then it's good, it's a pain to reverse them, or you can sell them, whatever. But yeah, I'm happy with the move. There was a while when I kind of liked having the two different custodians, because a TD, I thought their account opening process was a little bit better, but now Schwab's kind of improved those. So I'm probably going to stick with Schwab as my primary custodian. There's obviously other ones available. But yeah, for right now, it's,
how does sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just for me, for right now, just having kind of all the accounts in one spot, all the non-401k accounts is a good thing for me.
Nice. So what does this mean to the banking industry at large? We've lost a major player through consolidation, so less competition. Where does that play in?
Yeah, I think actually the most dramatic effect is in the advisor community, because you don't have a lot of custodians who are really advisor friendly, because you have to build sort of a whole mechanism to do that. Like Schwab has a whole Schwab Advisor Services platform to, you're calling in a separate number, a separate website, all this kind of stuff specifically for advisors. So I think Schwab and TD were number 1 and number 2 for advisors to use. So consolidation among the top two is reason to kind of question things, but there's still there's a company called Altruist who's kind of a new entry in that space. So there is still innovation there. You still have other big custodians. You have interactive brokers that people like. You have the company Altruist, and of course Fidelity. So there still is competition in that space, and competition for advisors. SEI is another big one. So I think there's enough players there to continue to spur innovation and all that kind of stuff. So, but
right on.
Yep.
Right on. So the thing I have a couple things I wanted to talk about today. First of all, did you see me on the news?
I did. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. Can we play the clip? You want to play the clip?
I did pull it up. Let me see if I could share. Let me see if I could share a tab only. Let's see here. Share.
Well, you do that. I can kind of set it up. So this is WTNH. This is out of New Haven. So he's talking about the New Haven School District hack. And you want to set it up or play the clip?
Yeah. So just to set up. So the city of New Haven released, I think, $6 million or so to hackers this summer. I think the news cycle picked it up late August or so, mid-August. The Dennis House of WTNH in New Haven asked if I would be interviewed. I prepared really comprehensive notes to talk about it, and I was ready to do a deep dive in things. And the nightly news is not a podcast. Let's just say that. The nightly news is not a podcast. So, and this is I really wanted to not do a deep dive, but I wanted to really scratch the surface and provide some meaningful information. And unfortunately, the nightly news wants to kind of keep things superficial and keep things moving.
I know. Geez, if only you had your own finance and technology insights.
I know.
To talk about it. Jeez.
Exactly. So I'm going to use our platform, the platform I have control over, to talk about the things that I want to talk about. And I may have covered these already. So if it's if we've already covered it, I apologize.
No, this is good.
The clip is 6 minutes long. I don't know if we want to sit through 6 minutes of it, but if you Google cybersecurity expert, cyber attack, something like that, you can watch it. It is on. It was published August 27th or so, and I'll just give you.
Right now, as you watch this program, hackers are out there somewhere waiting to break into your social media pages, your bank accounts, and your email. And it's not just you. Companies and organizations are targets too. Just recently, the city of New Haven was the victim of a cyber attack, and $6 million was stolen. And with us now to add some more perspective to this is a cybersecurity expert. He is Eric Bierendorf. And Eric, good to see you here in the program.
Good to see you too.
So tell me about your background.
I'm the CEO of Evernet. We're a national IT services provider. It's nonstop.
So Eric, I imagine the people doing these, I picture them in a basement overseas or something like that. But who are the hackers?
The city wasn't
Blah,
doing
blah, blah.
A few reasonable.
So, anyways, I don't want to relive the experience, but you can get an idea for it. So, what I wanted to talk about was I don't know how do you think this came off? Did you watch the video?
I did. Yeah.
What was your general impression and as far as like, do you think I was throwing too much shade at the leadership at New Haven? Was it clumsy? Was it any useful there? What do you think?
No, I thought it was pretty good. I thought the lead in he gave there was I don't know what the word I'm looking for there is, but it was I guess to make people nervous. It was a little bit scary. They're after you. They're
right.
Trying to, but he's not wrong. So they are out there, and it is something to be vigilant about. I thought the interview and your expertise that you added there was important, and we've talked about it on here. But I think the most important thing was, and I like the headline up there. Cyber attack against New Haven could have been prevented. So I think that's the most important message that you want to get out, and that's what your business does. So
yeah. So it was when we see an attack like this, and again, I do preface to say, like, I have no inside knowledge, so this is purely speculation on the outside looking in. But I'm pretty sure that I'm probably correct in what my assertion is. First, I just want to say that according to Microsoft, 91% of cyber attacks start with email. Okay, so we know that email is basically the primary attack vector to hack organizations. And then, and I'll just add to that, what is the primary user of email? Humans, right? So we know that email is the primary technical vector, technology attack vector, if you will, and we know humans are the targets, right? So the two, just right out of the gate, like 91% of attacks start with email and humans. So when you're trying to secure an organization, where do you put your talent, your research, and the bulk of your security controls? Do you put them at the front door? Do you put them on this, that, or the other? No, you start looking at your email system and your humans as how do we ratchet this down, right? Well, this type of security called business email compromise, the way that this is perpetrated is the user is sent an email that gets them to click on a link and then prompts them to put in their credentials, right? It's some sort of like Microsoft looking email that we've all seen that says your account password is about to expire. Click here to update your password. When you click on the link, it takes you to a quasi-legit looking Microsoft page. You enter your email address, you enter your password, you click, and you enter it twice, you know what I mean? Or you enter your old password and your new password twice. Well, the new password doesn't stick. It says, congratulations, you've succeeded. And then you move on with your day, not realizing that your old password is still valid and you just affirmed what your old password is. So now the hacker can just go to outlook.office.com and log into your email. And the first thing that they do, and the primary vehicle to attack your email, is to create an email message rule right in your settings. If you go to Outlook and you go to settings and you go to message rules, and what they do is they just said, forward all in and out emails to the secondary mailbox. And that is the primary way that they monitor the email coming in and out. And then what they do is they wait for you to discuss a financial transaction, and that's why they usually target leadership and managers and money managers and people who have decision-making authority. And then they just wait for an opportunity to insert a modification to a financial transaction, and that's how this works. So, to my estimation, and what Evernet does for its clients, we make the recommendation that you just disable email forwarding at the global level, right? So a very small percentage of people actually benefit from email forwarding. So like a very small percentage of people create message rules for email forwarding in and out, right? Some people do, and those who do use it and do need it, and there's a valid reason for it. But I would venture to say well over 90% of everybody does not use message rules, right? So our standard recommendation is just to disable globally message forward rules. And then if somebody says, hey, I need to forward an email message in and out every time I receive something, they have to make a ticket to help desk. And then we can pierce that control. We can get get that validated with leadership. And then we can do the manual support of that one user, one feature, rather than just this open, wide open function.
Do you think Microsoft should put that as the default? If you could wave a magic wand, would you do that or not?
They are, and this is the other thing, they are moving very slow. They do recognize that is the primary feature that is being exploited for these attacks. In 2019, I pulled up an article, and in 2019, they did start rolling out additional global features for email administrators to make that process easier. It's still kind of quasi-technical, so like a level 1 or level 2 system admin could not easily make this change. This is a level 3 or not engineering level, but it's a high level email admin function. So they are kind of edging towards a more secure default, so to speak, but still, I don't think they're there yet.
Okay.
So that's the first thing, right? So we know what the attack vector is. We know how they're doing it. Shut that down. So I'm assuming that the city of New Haven did not do that. Okay. So I find that to be egregious. And who's responsible for it over there? Is it the CIO? Is it the system admin? I mean, ultimately, the CIO takes responsibility for everything. Ultimately, the board of directors, in this case, it's a government, so it would be the city councilors and things. So ultimately, leadership takes responsibility, right? Because here's the thing: with proper governance responsibilities, the board of directors is supposed to do their due diligence and make sure that the governance is the IT system information governance is being managed appropriately, right? Which means they hire a CIO who is properly trained and experienced in building an information system that has appropriate controls in place, right? So the board of directors, in this case, the city council, it's their responsibility to make sure that happens. So the shit starts rolling downhill. It doesn't roll uphill. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of the shade that I was throwing in that regard. I don't want to attack anybody personally, but just conceptually, that's how that works. In this case, the city of New Haven, it was the COO who was actually exploited. So the chief operating officer was the one who was exploited successfully. I was going to talk about multi-factor authentication, but in the context of the security, the COO being exploited, the other security control that they likely don't have in place or don't have a good enough one in place is a security awareness training learning management system. And I think I've talked about this probably ad nauseum at this point, but it is the single most important security control, perhaps, in an information system or in an IT environment. Before I just said that sentence, what would you say is the most important security control in an IT environment?
Well, so one of the notes I had a question on is how important does obviously prevention is what you want to do, but also having a response in case something happens, how that's communicated to potentially people involved. But I would say, yeah, I mean, anytime you can prevent something from happening and train people in the first place and make that part of the onboarding process, that's critical.
Yeah, exactly. But basically what I was trying to tee you up to is most people realize that at minimum, every computer should have an antivirus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that kind of a general school of thought for the last 30 years?
Yeah, and I think most people now at this point assume it's kind of like built in or whatever. So
Right.
maybe that's, I remember people, you'd buy Norton or buy whatever, and it was,
Right.
the old software, you're buying it off the shelf and putting the discs in or whatever. But I think people now kind of assume that it's
They
integrated
maybe
or
assume it's
whatever.
built in. Yeah. All right. I'll give
Yeah.
you that. What I was trying to draw the distinction is antivirus is kind of the de facto software technical control, right? That we have. Well, security awareness training is now in my viewpoint, and I think in a large, growing pool of my contemporaries view the same thing. Security awareness training is like the antivirus for humans. Like if you have one and not the other, you're half there. My dentist growing up said, Eric, if you don't floss, just imagine brushing half of your mouth, right? Flossing is a part of the complete package. If you're not flossing, you may as well just brush half of your teeth, right? And so antivirus and security awareness training is that paradigm. It's that important. And there may be some I think there's some debate about it. And the real concerning problem is I think the consensus is there that continued security awareness training is now important, but what's not there is the implementation of it. Still, a lot of professional communities think that sending the occasional professional in the office to a seminar or a webinar once or twice a year constitutes security awareness training. Like if I was a public speaker at a dental association conference or a legal association meeting or a bar association meeting or something, and I was like the keynote speaker talking about cybersecurity and all this crap, you know what I mean? Like that does not constitute appropriate and meaningful security awareness training. And I think there's not a consensus in that, or at least the non-technical people don't realize that. So I'm really spending a lot of time saying security awareness training in a platformatized product, a learning management system, a software where every employee in the company, from the janitor to the CEO, and quite frankly, the board of directors, if they have any identity within the information system or IT program, everybody has to be plugged into this LMS, the learning management system, and then they have to be administered continual and frequent enough security awareness training, micro trainings, and complete trainings where your participation is measured and quantified, and then your performance in it is measured and quantified. And if the CEO is not taking the security awareness training, or the COO is not taking his security awareness training, or is not measuring to a reasonable standard of the assessments, because the platform we use issues a 4 to 6 minute micro training video once a month with 4 questions, and it's like, basically, do you have a pulse? Did you sit here for 4 to 6 minutes?
Right.
So what do you think?
Well, my question for you is there a misconception out there that security awareness training is for the IT people? Like, oh, they handle that. If I send my security people, down to New York to sit through this, 8 hours of whatever, and then they'll come back and they'll implement and tell us everything we need to
disseminate the information somehow by every time I call the help
or
desk,
they'll fix this at the high level. They'll fix this on all the machines to make sure this doesn't happen. Is that the misconception?
I think it is. And unfortunately, and this is where I really get emphatical, and this is where the shade comes in that I throw towards, like, the city of New Haven, for example, is the CIO and the COO and the board of directors. If they feel this way also, then there's no hope. There's no hope.
Right.
So it really, you have to have the buy-in from the board of directors or the council down to the leadership, CEO, COO, CIO. Like, they have to believe in this stuff. And then they have to make sure that these platforms are implemented, and then they have to make sure that people are participating, and that, there's so many egos in a corporation that people feel like they're exempt, or that's not important, and what are the you have a key asset in personnel, I'm too busy to deal with this stuff. Like I see
Yeah.
it all. I see it all the
Yeah,
time.
or that's not going to happen to me. I know a phishing email when I see one. That's not going to happen to me.
Right. But what really needs to happen is the platform needs to be in place. A manager needs to be assigned to the tool. People need to be held accountable. The governance within the corporation has to have policy that says full stop. Your identity to the information system is revoked until you
Yeah.
become current in the system. But most corporations just don't have the appetite for that kind of
Right.
governance.
Yeah.
And
I've written down that as a note. Is there a way you can lock access until they complete the training? Like I would totally
absolutely.
do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the net effect is we do it to computers. If your computer wants to join the corporate network to access the corporate data and the corporate applications, you can have, oh God, the control name escapes me because it's still early, but you can have a control authentication authority that checks the health state of the device wanting to connect to the corporate network. And if the device's health state is not compliant, you reject its connection request. So
Right.
I forgot what the damn control is called at the top of my head. But basically, if your antivirus is out of date and it's reporting that state to its security, there's all the modern operating systems now have like security centers that keep track of that. So if your computer says, "Oh, my antivirus is out of date," and you want to join a corporate VPN or start logging into Microsoft Teams or whatever, that health state gets logged, and then you just get rejected. Well, you have to call help desk anyways and say like, "Hey, I can't log into the corporate network. What do I do?" The help desk guy or gal is going to say, "Oh, your antivirus fell out of whack. Let me do a manual update. Let me make sure the system's updating." And then once the system is compliant again, now you can rejoin the corporate network. Well, the human has to be treated in the same way. If you're not participating in the security awareness training platform and you're not meeting the compliance profile, then your identity in the corporation should be suspended pending that. But again, what I'm espousing right now is unfortunately viewed as probably extreme for most organizations, and that's really what. And I'll just circle back to the city of New Haven. That by viewing my comments here as extreme leads to the city of New Haven releasing $6 million to hackers. And that's just as simple as it gets. Until you understand that, like this is where we are. It's not going to change. I'll just make one more comment to multi-factor authentication. I still see clients push back to us when we want to globally enable multi-factor authentication. They want the boss to be excluded. They want this to be excluded. They want that to be excluded.
Crazy.
Yeah. Now we're the type of IT company that we don't dictate to our clients. We make all of the security recommendations and advisories. But if they tell us, no, I want to willfully misconfigure or create an unsafe condition for my company, we will do that for them. And all of the documentation is made to our recommendation. So it's not, we'll fix it when they break it. We'll fix it when it gets hacked. We don't, it's not that we don't care. It's just that we don't dictate to our clients. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. You're making a recommendation, but ultimately it's, same sort of thing in our world. We'll make the investment recommendation, but if
buy high, sell low, buy high, sell low. And
yeah,
you want to say like, don't do that. That's not called investing.
Right.
You're supposed to buy low and sell high. So just to put a bow on this, I'm guessing that the city of New Haven did not have multi-factor authentication and globally enabled and or enforced globally. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And again, we don't know anything about this situation, but it is possible that they had it and then maybe this individual opted out or requested to
exactly. So if you have an available security control like multi-factor authentication that relies on the end user to willfully want to protect their account, then you have a percentage of people that will take the easiest route. They will not enable it. So they may have had MFA, but they likely didn't have it globally enforced. Of course, I could be wrong entirely on this whole thing, and there is one way that I could be wrong on this. And I was thinking about this after my interview on Channel 8. It's possible that a hack was exploited of the email server directly. So if they run Microsoft Exchange server on-prem or in the cloud, a number of high-profile vulnerabilities have been discovered in Microsoft Exchange. So I will preface all of this saying I don't know exactly. This is educated guesses, and it's entirely possible that it was a 0-day vulnerability exploited in the back end of Exchange that got them in there to create these message rules. Still, proper governance and IT systems management should have frequent and recurring risk assessments and baseline reviews. So the systems, if the system was exploited and these message rules were created, a manual check of the system should have caught that. So that's what I wanted to talk about on News Inc., but I didn't get to talk about on News Inc.
Well, that's why we have this platform. No, I think that's really good. The idea of management or high-level executives opting out of multi-factor authentication is ridiculous. I think we both agree. And the only reason they're doing that is just convenience and time. They don't want to spend the 20 seconds to open up the authenticator app and put in a code. Right? That's it, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've been on multi-factor for like a decade or half a decade or so. And the problem with multi-factor is it's every service and vendor has to make it available as a feature of the service. And so even banks are still slow to roll out proper multi-factor authentication. So it's not ubiquitous yet. It's near ubiquitous. But still, I still see my peer groups among my colleagues, other IT business owners and managers, they still treat the culture around MFA as recommended but optional. Recommended but optional.
The crossover question here. So what are your thoughts on this is a trusted advice, disable multi-factor authentication? What are your thoughts on that option? Should that option remain, or should banks just say, never mind having a trusted advice, always assume it's not trusted?
Okay, so you're saying if I log into the bank once on a device, can I tell the bank that this is a trusted device?
Right. So therefore, obviously it'll give that question, could check this box, to disable whatever security feature so that we know.
Well, so they don't tell you disable security feature. I think what the experience is when you log into something like that and they ask you, is this a trusted device? I think when you say yes, then they may not prompt you for the second factor frequently. There's a concept called zero trust in the security world where nothing is trusted ever. I mean, obviously that is the most secure disposition or the most security. But there's a new technology coming around the corner called passkeys. Did we talk about passkeys?
I think we have, but we can do a minute or two here.
Passkeys is this concept of if you when you first buy, there's biometrics now on your Samsung and on your iPhone, right? So if you first unbox your iPhone and you register your biometrics in the phone, you have enrolled your identity with the phone. Okay. The idea is then if you connect to an account from your phone, like your email or your bank account, and they support passkeys, the trust can be passed from your phone to the website. So then the website can say, if you use passkeys, you don't need to. If you've enrolled yourself with the phone and the bank's website that supports passkeys, that trust will pass through its transitive trust. So the idea is now you don't need a password. So the idea is it's the holy grail of like passwordless future. It's still emerging. The standard for the technology is a number of years old, but it's just kind of starting to come around the corner. I think Microsoft supports it on their private accounts. If you had like Hotmail or Outlook.com account, you can, and you go to the security settings, you can remove your password from the account.
Okay.
And that will use passkeys. And Google is also supporting this in their workspace product, but it's still early days.
Right, because you got a couple different options there, right? There's like the Face ID, and then there's a retinal scan, and then there's fingerprints. So all those fall into that same category, right?
Right. And then if we just look at the Microsoft personal account in terms of your security options, you still can do second factor to SMS, which is a text message. You can still do a second factor code to a secondary email account. Then you can do the authentication app. And then you can do passwordless or passkeys. You can remove the password. The weird thing is that if you leave the other ones enabled while you're removing one of them, you're only as strong as the weakest security framework, and in order weak to strong, text message is very weak. Secondary email is also weak. Then the authenticator app, and then the password keys, I think, is presumed to be the highest security standard. I don't know if I answered your question though. Should we trust a device? Zero trust is always more secure. If you log into your bank website from your home computer, you check the box and say, trust this computer, don't prompt me for the second factor. If you then get exploited by a hacker who if you've ever watched a Mark Rober video, I think he covered this. And if you let a hacker onto your computer and remote drive your computer, then you've removed one barrier to entry because there's these hackers, they're specifically targeting people. So they're sending emails. You click on the link, they will call you, or they'll tell you to call. A number of these hacks get you on the phone, and then they get you to click a link, and then they think you're saving an account, you're preserving something important, and they're now like, oh, we need to connect to your computer remotely. Now they're driving your computer, they're seeing what you're doing. You know what I mean? So if you lack the awareness to keep your personal devices reasonably secure, and you start checking all of these options that remove all these additional barriers, I think it doesn't really matter, because if that hacker gets to that point and he gets to your bank's website and he goes click to log in, and your password manager injects your username and password, and then it prompts you for the multi-factor, he's just going to tell you to look at your phone and just to enter in the key at that point. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Right, and a lot of times they know your cell phone, and they can hack that kind of stuff too. So that's why
they'll be on the phone with you with the 80-year-old woman who's about to clear out her savings and say like, "Oh, hey, you we logged in, but see this thing here? Check your cell phone for the key number," and she won't know what
right.
Nobody's drawing. The victim's not drawing a connection to the attack.
Yeah, it's funny as we come full circle. I know on the advisor, I'd go in the morning and log into the Schwab advisor site, the TD advisor site, and I don't know specifically what the timeout requirements were, but the TD felt like it was 5 minutes. Like I could go to another tab and come back, and it's already logged me out. And I know the Schwab tab kept me in there a little bit longer, so I'm actually going to log in and time it today to see what the factor is. I'm usually pretty good about, even before I close the tab, I try to log out and whatever, but if you're in there working, man, that TD kicked you out quick, so that's something else.
Yeah, I'm kind of beating the horse dead, but can I keep going on a couple two more points?
No, I think it's good.
So remind me to talk about auto login and lockout, but one thing I just wanted to point out, and I want to present this, is we do have a Facebook group called Finance and Technology Insights, and one of the articles I posted, I think this is the page I want to share here. Google, I posted this on August 24th, Google to protect sensitive Gmail settings with multi-factor challenge. So this article right here, it literally is saying that Google is finally going to prompt users for a multi-factor challenge when you go to change forwarding rules.
Mm.
Right. So
Yep.
this is Google's representation of this is Google representing that they understand that the forwarding rules are a major source of exploitation. So at least if somebody does get your password to your Gmail account, they won't be able to create a forward rule without your MFA. So
Got
that's what I wanted. I wanted to mention our Facebook page, and I wanted to just tie this news article in there.
Perfect.
You don't have any comment on that? I'll just make one other point.
No, keep going.
I'm on a roll, right?
Yep.
So and this is just more of a bitch and moan, I guess, but I'm finally on the Apple ecosystem. So I've been on the iPhone for years. I got the watch, got the iPad. Great. Well, I'm talking to you on a new MacBook, new Apple MacBook. Got a dual screen. I kind of went away from my PC with the 6 screens and things like that. So I'm all in on this. The cool thing with the Apple is I can configure my watch to unlock the computer as I approach the computer. But and it has to be really close. Like my watch has to be basically over the keyboard, which is really nice. The thing that kind of burns me, and I think I talked about this last year on one of our episodes, is they don't have the functionality to reverse that. Like if I pick up my phone and I walk away with my watch and my phone, the computer won't. There's no setting to sense that and lock the screen. And
I see.
that, I remember a bunch of years ago, we had some doctors that wanted us to configure these Bluetooth badges that they would wear on their lab coats and stuff. And when they came into the examination room where their computer was set up with the medical records, they wanted the badge to lock the Windows PC when they walked a certain proximity away from it. It didn't work well. It didn't work well at all. The Apple Watch works really well logging in, but I just wish they would reverse the process.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And then of course I know Android and Microsoft have a tight relationship. The latest version of Windows 10 and 11 have tighter bonds with Android phones. So I just wish that some time was spent across the industry saying like, geez, watches should be able to register with laptops or computers and or keyboards, right? So if you have a desktop computer, let's say, and your keyboard's up here, why isn't a consortium formed around this input paradigm where the presence can be detected, and even with AI on the laptops, you know what I mean? When somebody walks away from the screen. So I just wanted to get that out there.
No, that definitely makes sense. And you could, obviously you could set your timeout to be super short, like if you're not working at your machine times out in a minute.
But as you just pointed out, that's kind of clumsy, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. So you have to, no, that's a good point. So hopefully they'll add that feature in. Somehow we made 58 minutes out of that. So
I just blathered for the last half hour. Yeah.
No,
I hope that Apple recognizes that, like, hey, we could just add the inverse to the setting, and at least the Apple ecosystem would be secure. Whatever Microsoft does on the Microsoft side of the house, I think Logitech actually would Logitech is usually a very common third-party keyboard manufacturer, but it'd be nice if there was a consortium that would form around.
Yeah, I mean, even obviously every machine is coming with a camera now at this point. I mean, just factor in the widest angle of the camera lens. If they don't see you, lock out, even if it's just something that's
or even like, the cars now have awareness detection or alert detection, right? So like if you're on these new self-driving cars, which we've talked about a lot over the years, they now can like watch you. And if you're like distracted, the self-driving feature can like alert you and disable, right? So, I mean, they clearly could put that technology in the webcam so that way they may not want to lock you out if you're not looking, but they can at least detect you at the computer, and then if you stand up and walk away or you're out of field, lock the screen. I mean,
but that's, that is a good point though, because it works the way with keys too. Like as you approach your car with a lot of the key fobs that will unlock the car, but it doesn't, but like the Apple situation you described, it doesn't work the other way. You still have to push the button to lock it.
Right.
But yeah,
I'm surprised there's not more focus on that. But again, I'm not surprised because Microsoft is this weird lumbering giant. They lead in so many areas. They're killing it with their 365 and Azure suite of products and their subscription services and things like that. But then they just lumber around certain innovations surrounding security specifically. So
yeah. Well, we got some more stuff to talk about for next week then.
yeah, we got one in the can.
That.
So this is you want me to bring it up?
Yeah, keep going.
All right, we're Finance and Technology Insights. We're on Facebook, Finance and Technology Insights. We are on YouTube as Finance and Technology Insights, and we are on your favorite podcast. Brian is kind enough to take our audio and our video and push it to your favorite podcast recording. We record on Tuesday mornings. I am Eric Bjorndorf, the CEO of Evernet Consulting. We're a national IT services company. You can find me at EvernetCO on any social or at www.evernetco.com, and you can schedule a free hour of my time and a discovery call if you need any IT related consulting or services.
And I'm Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting, Connecticut-based investment advisory firm working with small businesses and families. You can also book a consultation with us at northshireconsulting.com, and you can follow us on social media, 401k and beyond. And we'll see you next week.
See you.